Welcome to episode 11 of the Lowdown Show. I'm Neil Graham. Few things inflame the advrider.com readership and viewership as much as these two things. First one is vehicle electrification. Let's not go there. Second one, Chinese motorcycles. But CFMOTO isn't your typical Chinese manufacturer. They're aggressive and they don't copy models from other brands. And this too, they have a long-standing relationship with KTM. Joining me to talk CFMOTO are two guys from the U.S. branch of the importer, Chris Peterman and Jason Loudon. But before we dive in, a word from our sponsor. eBay Motors is here for the ride. With some elbow grease, fresh installs, and a whole lot of love, you transformed 100,000 miles and a body full of rust into a drive that's all your own. Brake kits, LED headlights, whatever you need, eBay Motors has it. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber and not cash. Keep your ride alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions naturally apply. Shall we take the plunge? Chris or Jason, I don't know which one of you wants to answer this question, but CFMOTO, can you give us a little bit of history on the company?
Yeah, so I can go ahead and jump in on that one, and Jason, feel free to chime in if I miss something here. But so CFMOTO, we're actually, as a company globally, we're celebrating our 35th year this year in business. So we've been around for quite a long time. We've been overseas and in various capacities for 35 years. Here in the U.S., we're at around 15 years. We have about 600-ish dealers in the U.S. We're carrying about 335 motorcycle dealers here in the U.S. Every state, every major city across the U.S. So we have different test facilities, different R&D facilities throughout the world. Kind of working on projects, full time. We have 4,500 employees globally. Our warehouse factory in China is over 3 million square feet. And we did talk briefly about the KTM. We can dig into that a little bit more, but we do share some product with KTM overseas. So we can talk about that. So we've been doing a lot of different things lately. So as you can tell, we're kind of branching out. So Jason, I don't know if you have anything to add in there.
Yeah, I think that's a good summary. Yeah, it's interesting. When CFMOTO first started out, it was building Kickstarters and small parts like that. They did a lot of supply to Japanese OEMs and obviously built up to quite a company over the years.
So give me a sense of sort of the sales numbers that you sell in Asia, because I mean, a lot of us in the West don't really have a comprehension of how many motorcycles are sold elsewhere in the world. Do you have any of those kind of numbers, or can you give us some round numbers?
We just have some revenue numbers, not as far as broken down by units, but overseas we have over 3,000 dealers overseas, and in 2023 we had 1.7 billion in revenue.
Wow, that sounds like a lot. And you mentioned the affiliation with KTM. Tell me a bit more about that.
Yeah, so we've been working with KTM for quite a few years. Initially it was manufacturing support for KTM for certain models. Tended to be the smaller models like the 390s. That's evolved quite a bit over the years. So we share technology with KTM on engine architecture, things like that. I think that's pretty well known that we do have common engine platforms. There are differences that CFMOTO develops internally, like the intake exhaust cases. A lot of times are all new, and fueling, things like that are developed in-house. And we also, I believe about 2020, 21 is when they built a new KTM production facility. So that's all new, state of the art, very nice facilities, and we're building some of their bigger bikes at this time too. But it's a good relationship. We're able to leverage each other's strengths, and we see a good future. Well, right now it's working really well, and see a good future in that as we move ahead too.
Is there an ownership share either way with KTM? How does that work?
I'm not sure myself on the details, Chris. You can chime in if you know that, but I believe it was a joint venture initially. I don't, as far as ownership and that, I'm not aware of that at this point. I believe it's more of a joint venture relationship.
So most of the people watching this are in the West, primarily Canadians and Americans. And CFMOTO is making a big push. Obviously, my local Yamaha dealer is now a CFMOTO dealer in my little town north of Toronto. And I mean, the elephant in the room in the West is that people have especially now with the geopolitical situation, there's a real tension between the U.S. and China. How do you guys deal with that? Now, I mean, it's no secret that pretty much everything we have, including this microphone and everything else, is made in China. But there's certain items that, for whatever reason, cause people to get really animated. And of course, one of them is motorcycles. As you know, motorcyclists are very conservative by nature, and they want to believe that a Harley comes from Milwaukee and a Ducati comes from Bologna and KTM comes from Matterhofen. We have this idea. Now we don't. I think Ducati scramblers come from Taiwan, and there's all this. It really is a global marketplace in terms of where stuff comes from. But I'm guessing you guys take some heat. And what's your answer to that when people question the country of origin or the quality? How do you deal with that?
Let me jump in on this one. So, yeah, I'm more on the sales side. So, I'm the one that kind of disseminates the heat, as you kind of called it. So, yeah, there's only really one way to kind of go at that. There's certain, obviously, demographics of people and stuff that they're just not going to buy a product from China, or at least if they have a choice, like cell phones and things like that are different. But you know what, and we respect that. So for those people, all we can do is come out with product that they can't turn away from, that they have to take a second look at, that they have to go into their local dealership and take a look. And then along with that, maybe the younger demographic that's a little less geopolitical influenced, they're kind of coming in already kind of looking for our stuff. We kind of refer to that as more of an Amazon culture, where I'm buying stuff on Amazon, I never even look where it's from. And we do have a lot of that, so that does work to our advantage. The geopolitical thing is always going to be there. We talk about Kia and Hyundai a lot, where they were 20 plus years ago, and we compare ourselves to them. So we just kind of have to win people over with, we put good warranties on, we have products, parts available, and we stand behind what we have. But for us to win, we have to build products that people are really craving for right now and make them reliable. So that's how we feel like we can win in the marketplace.
And let's face it, it's old guys that complain about it, right? A 25-year-old doesn't care. 65-year-old is like, no, you're right. I mean, is that correct?
Oh, we know the complaints. We know what goes on. We do a lot of demo events, and we do a lot of big events, and we get a lot of conversations with people to come up and talk to us. And some guys, who you're dealing with right off the bat, like, oh, this is just China stuff and that. We understand that. We just do what we can do.
But why is it different? Like this, this is, I love Apple, it says designed in California, maybe you should design your stuff in California, and then no one will question you because you're like Apple. Maybe it should.
Well, we are doing a little bit of that. And Jason can get into the design and things like that. That's kind of his area of expertise. But, we're trying to, people for motorcycles, and this, and I spent an hour going through the forum yesterday on advrider.com. They love their motorcycles. They're passionate about motorcycles, even more so than the four-wheel product that we sell. That's their baby. They have just a very deep personal attachment to that motorcycle.
And now, Chris, you have the rather grandiose title of Director of Motorcycle Strategy, which I like that. I'll have to give myself a good title at some point. Now, what is it? What does that mean? What is your strategy? And you're specifically U.S. and Canada and Mexico, is that correct? Or
just the U.S.
You're just the U.S. So what is your strategy for CFMOTO? Where do you, when people say, where do you want to take the brand in 10 years or 15 years? What's your answer?
Yeah, so I did a long stint with a Japanese manufacturer, so I've been at CFMOTO about 3 years now, and I was hired to kind of navigate this motorcycle quote unquote strategy with CFMOTO, who's known in this area for four-wheel, doing a great job with four-wheel. So kind of what we started out is we had 7 models, and we're kind of like, okay, what does our dealer network look like after year 1, 2, 3, and now we're on year 4. So we're kind of starting to try and figure out what that looks like. I expect CFMOTO, with the product offerings that we're bringing, the future stuff that we have, some of the things that we're launching now, we're going to be in the top, top 4 or 5 names in the motorcycle industry. That's our goal. And I think, we continue. I know what we have coming for the future. I know what we look like. We want to be a major player in the US motorcycle market. Now, I know on the surface right now, okay, you guys don't have that many models. You're not doing this in dirt. You're not doing all this, but our goal is to be a major player in the US market.
Now, in terms of I did a little sleuthing online, and there are a lot of really interesting models that don't come to the US. So maybe we should start off. Let's just get to it. Just let's go through the model range for the US, and then we'll sort of focus on the ADV bikes, obviously, given our crowd.
So, Jason, you want to talk about models, or you want me to cover it?
Sure. Yeah, we can do a quick overview. Really, we've had 2 full years in the U.S., so we're just getting going. There has been models developed for other markets that we chose or didn't choose to bring over, depending on the customer wants and desires, things like that. So the current model lineup that we have in the sport bikes, we have 300 and 450 SS. Naked bikes, we have the 300 and 450 NK series, and then we added a 800 NK last year, 800 twin.
And those are sort of naked sporty bikes, street bikes.
Yeah, right. Yep. Those are naked street bikes. We have what we call a standard or kind of a heritage line in the CLX series that has a 700 twin in it. And there's also a sport variant of that. What else we got in the adventure? Of course, we'll get into that. So we had the 650 Adventura, which really led up to the newest models, which are the 800. So there's an 800S, which is more street oriented, and then we have a T model, which has a little more off-road capability to it. Did I miss any, Chris?
No, and as far as the overseas products, so there's a lot of markets like we talked about before we started. India and Asia and things like that. They look for 250s. 125s. I know that there's been a 500 4-cylinder that was just shown online not too long ago. So we look at everything, and they're so quick to produce and to start to engineer different models and bikes and things like that for different segments. Sometimes it just doesn't work for our market, whether it's product or pricing or whatever it is. That in the US, we're kind of a higher CC type demographic, and overseas they're smaller and things like that. So that we have a lot of different things available. We just try to be very, very cautious on what we bring to the US, because our dealer network, they don't like a bunch of SKUs. They don't like numbers and models just to have numbers and models. We want to make sure that we're bringing things that they can make money on, that they can be profitable on, and that are going to sell.
And so just to reiterate, so the 300 you talked about, that's a single, I presume?
That's right.
And then the 450 is a parallel twin.
Parallel twin.
Kind of thinking Ninja 400. And then the 300, of course, is like the CRF 300 Honda. That's the same sort of category. And then the 800s are parallel twins as well.
Right.
And 650. Now let's sort of focus on, that it seems like you guys are very good at echoing, keeping it the understanding what is the current marketplace, because obviously the 800 is kind of the sweet spot for ADV bikes these days, whether it's the 890 KTM or the new 900 GS BMW, which I just rode in Nevada. So that's a really tough category. It's kind of like the sport bike category, the 600cc sport bike category 25 years ago, when every 2 years it was a completely new bike. So it's a very intense segment. So you're really jumping in with this bike. What's your own impression? You guys, I haven't ridden it, but you have. Obviously you're biased, but what's it like?
Okay, so the 800 IBEX has been around for a number of years, but in the US here for 2 years. So the intent of the bike really is, I would call it more like an 80-20. It's the guys who are looking for more off-road bias are going to be pretty excited about the 450 coming up. Of course, that's a smaller displacement, but if you want good road manners, bike that you can do some put some seat time on, it's going to be a great bike for that. Again, the engine architecture shared with KTM based on their 790s. So if you're familiar with that engine, you're going to have a pretty good idea what the output and characteristics are with that motor. One of the things that I think you'll find as you look at the IBEX 800 series is the amount of features that are on it, and for the price point. We've always been aggressive with pricing. And again, if you go back to, you kind of think about it in automotive terms, kind of like the Kia Hyundai story. They came to the market with well-designed. Well, actually, I would say design got better as they went, but they had a few stumbling blocks there.
The Hyundai Pony, for one. We don't need to talk about that.
Yeah, and then once they started getting that sorted out, and of course the manufacturing and engineering side of it was pretty solid, but they were really aggressive on pricing and features. So we've been able to capitalize on that too. If you put us apples to apples with another brand, you're going to find that we stack up really well there. And pricing, of course, is a component to that success.
I think.
Sorry, Chris, go ahead.
I think that we you're right. We dove right into a very competitive niche right there with that bike, and I think we've learned a lot by diving into a very competitive niche right there in that 800. The KTM platform does help. We got a lot of nice creature comforts on there. The bike is tremendous. I have one personally. Of course, I'm going to say it's tremendous, but I have spent some miles on it. It does the fire road mountain pass okay. And I think we have learned that buyer probably wants a little bit more off-road capable. When the rubber meets the road, do they spend most of the time on the pavement? Probably, but from a buyer standpoint, we have learned that in our first year here in that model. So kind of taking what we've learned and kind of applying it as we move forward.
Yeah, I was looking at your website today. So it's $10,800, which is the 800T, and it has a cruise control, up and down quick shifter. Now I sound like you guys. Heated seats and hand grips. The heated seats kind of nice. That's very good. Luggage racks, and you guys know you have to cost less than a KTM or a BMW. There's no, as you say, the Hyundai Kia thing. You can't just come into a marketplace without being, people without familiarity and charge the same price. How much are you less? Is it kind of like 20% less than competing brands, give or take?
Typically, it's not like we have a number in mind when we set MSRPs or anything like that. We kind of figure out where we need to be and then kind of work from there. Obviously KTM is a premium product. BMW is a premium product. Obviously the Japanese have been doing what they've been doing for a long time. So what makes a person buy our motorcycle? And the price does factor in, but we also have to, and like with our four-wheel product, we give them everything that they want right off the bat, so they're not having to put a bunch of money in after the fact. So it's kind of a combination of things. eBay
Motors is here for the ride. So this week's Storytime, because we're talking about CFMOTO, and it's a increasingly familiar brand, but not everyone knows who they are yet. So I'm going to tell you about a motorcycle that I own that no one had ever heard of. It was called a Bridgestone. Same people that made tires. In the 60s, they made motorcycles. And the reason apparently they got out of motorcycles is that they were trying to sell tires to other motorcycle manufacturers in Japan, brands they were competing with. Of course, they didn't like the fact that, Honda or Yamaha or Suzuki didn't like the fact that Bridgestone was selling their own models. So apparently Bridgestone sacrificed its own motorcycles to sell more tires. It was kind of sad. Anyway, I had a 175 dual twin, I think it was called. I set up a scrambler style thing. And it had a little lever in the top of the transmission. This is the weirdest feature. And you could go from a standard 5-speed to a 4-speed rotary, which meant you could go from fourth gear to first gear. And that was the feature. You're in a traffic, and you don't have to downshift. You just go click, and then you're back ready to go. But of course, the problem is if you don't know what gear you're in, and you go to upshift on the highway from fourth to a non-existent fifth, then you fire yourself over the handlebars. It was a feature that mercifully died. And the other irritating thing about the Bridgestone was it had a big BS on the side, Bridgestone, but just the letters BS, which doesn't translate well into English. There you have it. With over 122 million parts, you can make sure your number one ride stays running smoothly. Brake kits, LED headlights, roof racks, bumpers, whatever your baby needs, eBay Motors has it. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions naturally apply. You're listening to The Lowdown Show. Jason, your title, another grandiose title, Director of Product and Innovation. So tell me how you're innovating. What's your job? What do you do? What's your gig at CFMOTO?
Okay. Yeah. So about a year and a half ago, I switched from the off-road group, which we call four-wheel product, to motorcycles. I have my history has always been in power sports. I've actually have more background in motorcycles than off-road. I've worked at Polaris and Victory, and I worked in the V-twin industry for basically over 30 years. So I started out in design and engineering, so I was responsible for a lot of industrial design of product, and but I just worked in a lot of different areas, and eventually started working more towards product strategy. So at CFMOTO, one of the things when they set up the U.S. operations here, it wasn't only to support service and warranty and parts and things like that, the business functions, but we also set up what's called the DIG Center. We call it the Discovery Innovation Group. And that's a group of about 25 people right now that focus on new product, market research, innovation, and just having the sights on our market to make sure that we got the best product for our market moving ahead. So I spent a lot of my time out in the field with Chris, and we're doing focus groups, surveys. We're interviewing dealers, customers, and we're trying to understand what people want in the product. And then we bring those forward insights to our engineering development teams in China. And a lot of that early work we'll even do here. We have staff of world-class industrial designers and engineers that are very forward-thinking. So it's not our job to design the product. We call it DFM, Design for Manufacturing. That's really still handled in China right now. But we're kind of like the front edge of that's understanding the market and bringing new product ideas and innovations into the. So again, we're 2 years into this on motorcycles, so we're just getting going. I think you're gonna see a lot of exciting stuff coming up, including the four-wheel side. So you'll see kind of the fruits of what we're doing here shortly.
It must be a huge amount of work, and I just think of we just tend to think you make a motorcycle, you ship it off, but then of course you have the whole issue of parts and parts availability, and for a lot of niche brands, and you're not a niche brand, obviously, you're attempting to be a mainstream brand, but to get an oil filter for an MV Agusta is never a given. But you guys have lots of dealers, you're making more all the time. And that your reputation, I mean, parts have to be available, right? Or you guys, I mean, you've only got one chance to make this reputation, don't you?
Yeah, we actually kind of we take the stance that we warehouse more parts than what we financially would need to do. We can get parts pretty quickly, but we know from the beginning with four-wheel that we have to be able to take care of that issue quickly. And nothing's 100%, nothing's perfect. Okay, an anomaly pops up. It's it takes longer than it should to get it taken care of. But that is a huge thing with us. It's kind of like why we put 2-year warranty on all of our motorcycles, because we believe in that. So that gives that customer. I'm like, I'm not really sold on that brand yet, but it does have a 2-year warranty and it's 20% less than somebody else. So it's just that combination of things. But yeah, we try and make sure the parts are as quickly as we can.
I mean, how much influence do you have over the models? Because every market in the world is different. And the U.S. market is obviously different from the Chinese market, and maybe the people who make your motorcycles don't know the Western market that well. I mean, this is a new push. Is there a lot of back and forth where they will propose something and you'll say, well, listen, that's not going to fly in Wisconsin? Are there those sorts of relationship? Maybe just give us some insight into how your relationship works with the mothership.
That is pretty much, in a nutshell, that is a big part of what we do. They kind of have, they're on working on so many different things all the time that I love that they're, so aggressive. They want to build new product. And sometimes we're just kind of like, okay, hey, just let's take a deep breath here for a minute. And Jason's really good about understanding what the market needs and what our product, what's going to sell. So we probably spend more time, and Jason and I are actually going to China. We'll be there. We've already been there once this year. We'll be there in another week. So we spend a lot of time over there trying to make sure that they understand. And the good part about the guys in China is they want to understand. They don't just, okay, take this information and just do what they're going to do anyway. They take our information and they say, okay, we want to try and help. It's amazing how fast and quickly they can react and improve on product, even just year over year. So we spend it's a lot of time that we spend with those guys over there, and they're really good, hardworking guys, and we have a great relationship with them. But we do a ton of back and forth with those guys.
Yeah, and one just to expand on that a little bit. So one of the early successes, I think that and we'll get into this a little bit more, is the IBEX 450. So when we first researched the market and to try to understand what models we should be building, that was an idea that we worked with them on to bring to the market. So if you like that bike and you think it's hitting a unique spot in the market, those are the type of insights that we're bringing to really look for. We want to build a solid portfolio in the competitive segments, but also look for opportunities where other manufacturers aren't addressing the needs that consumers want.
Tell me about this IBEX 450. That's not available yet. That's coming, correct?
That's coming, yeah.
Wait, before he starts, I just want you to know this is Jason's favorite topic.
So I should stretch for a while because this could go on a while.
These are going to light up right now.
Okay. All right.
This is his favorite thing, and he's so passionate about ADV and stuff like that. So this is his wheelhouse.
Well, give me a sense of the bike and tell me where it fits in with models we would already know. Just kind of a shorthand, so we kind of get a sense of what it is.
Yeah. Like Chris said, we're really excited about this model. That we've seen success with this 450 motor in the SS. So that's our and the NK. That's our sport and naked bike. It's a peach of a motor. It's a parallel twin that's double counterbalanced. Depending on the configuration, it can make from about mid 40s to 51 horsepower right now. So when we looked at that, and we had something unique there, having a parallel twin in that displacement, good running, smooth motor, we need to look for opportunities of what we can do with that. So the IBEX 450 is one that has come out of that. We understood the need in the adventure market. The heavyweights are always going to be there. That's long proven, great customer base. They sell good year over year. The middle class has come up in recent years. There's been a little bit of wavering there, even with that. And what we seen was that there was a longing for more light adventure type bikes that are more suitable in the dirt. They're not, even the 800s and those mid-class bikes can get quite heavy. They can be a bit of a handful when you take them off road. So the IBEX 450 is bringing you more towards that dirt capability. That's got 18 rear, 21 front, tubeless spokes, right off the showroom floor. It's I wouldn't call it, it's interesting. You get into a segment that's kind of blurs the line between dual sports and light adventures. So dual sports are still going to be lighter. They're going to have some advantages in the dirt, but of course you bring those on the road and you're going to give up things that a good road bike has. So the IBEX 450 is really finding a really good balance of that. It's substantial enough to do well on the road, be vibration free. It's got decent wind protection. We were able to spend some time in the Philippines really getting after the bikes off road and on road, and that was the first time we got to really ride the bikes at the World Intro, and I think we were both surprised at how well they work on the road. And yet you go in the dirt, it feels like something you want to do. You can stand easily. The ergonomics are very favorable for that, and it's something that just encourages dirt riding with it. So that's as far as you asked about comp bikes, it's difficult right now because you have a 390 KTM that tends to be a little smaller, maybe for smaller stature people. You have a Himalayan, which is a little more vintage type crowd. So there really isn't a lot in this segment right now, and I think that we're able to come out and take a lead in that. And we'll probably see others following, but we feel pretty good about being able to offer something unique.
You're listening to The Lowdown Show, presented by advrider.com and supported by ebaymotors.com. I've long questioned focus groups and how accurate they are, what you glean from focus groups, because I've heard people that work in that world, and they say it's really complicated. That sometimes you'll talk to people, they'll tell you what they think you want to hear, or they're just grumpy as hell and they'll complain about everything. So, I mean, what's that process like? I mean, this is not strictly CFMOTO based, but just out of my own curiosity, what do people say? What are some of the weird things you've heard?
Well, let me just real quick. In my experience, a lot of companies use focus group to justify what they've already done. They're not using it to get actual information. So we're trying to take the approach, and Jason, you can jump in here, of not just checking a box to things that we've already been working on. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? So
yeah, it's a tool that we use in research. I think your concerns are valid, and you have to understand that you're asking the right questions. Sometimes you're reading between the lines, because a lot of people, whether customers or dealers that are really familiar with the market, and that they know what's out there right now, they know what's working. So you have to encourage them to think past that a little bit, and the what ifs. So a lot of times, what we'll do, we'll focus group dealers, consumers, market experts, and then we'll bring that data together along with a lot of other research that we do. It can be surveys, it can be direct observation in the field. There's a lot of tools that we use, and it's really just one data point that we don't allow that to make our decision completely at any time, but we need to weigh in and have people weigh in on what we're doing. I think with the companies that I've been with, CFMOTO has been the most forward with that, and we'd like to involve people that a lot of other companies wouldn't even consider, to understand, all right, is this what the market's looking for? Is this the right style? Is this new feature gonna hit with people? Is it that kind of stuff? And then we're able to go back with a lot of information and make the best decision.
Did you guys ever see the Simpsons episode when Homer was asked to design a car?
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. I think there were like 11 cup holders, and they would all fit like a 400-ounce big gulp, basically the size of us. So that's something to be aware of. Now, where does CFMOTO have a company that they look at and say, we'd like to be like X or Y? Is there a company who's, I don't know, engineering and because we're motorcyclists, we have a very, we have such a brand affiliation, don't we? I'm kind of I've got old Ducatis. I'm kind of that guy. And then, of course, where you guys are in the Midwest, and you're in Minnesota, which is your American headquarters, and you just built a new building, which you can tell me about. But it's very much a V-twin culture. So, I mean, where does CFMOTO see itself with other brands?
I think, I can't really speak to the four-wheel side. I think on the two-wheel side, with our KTM affiliation, I don't think we want to be KTM, but we do like some of that influence that we can kind of share with each other. Obviously the Japanese brands, they've done a really good job of, the dealer network and just establishing themselves. They have great reputations for the most part. And inroads lately in the past few years, Kawasaki has done a really good job, just kind of across the board. I'm not saying we want to be Kawasaki, but Kawasaki, I gotta, give them credit. They have done a great job, and all the Japanese have kind of just do that. So I think, like I said, we don't want to be Japanese, obviously, but there's certain ways that they have done a great job. There's certain things that the European guys have done that are great. So, we're kind of just trying to make sure that we build our reputation as a great company and as a good product. So, I think the Japanese is a good way to kind of just target. Okay, that's our buyer. We're making similar product. That's kind of where we're headed and where our price point's at. Our price point's not KTM or Ducati. That's a little bit tougher to capture, but I think we definitely have sharing a lot of buyers with Japanese right now.
Yeah, and the one thing I'll add to that it's very clear when we have done focus group and interview people that we need to have reliable, solid engineered product. Needs to be backed by a good warranty. So we know that those staples that Japanese companies have been known for, that's important for us too. I think where you're going to see a little departure from that is some of the aggressiveness of product. Even if you look at the design end, the styling end, we want to be pushing the envelope on that kind of stuff, where some companies can tend to be a little more conservative on those end. Where you see, like Chris mentioned, KTM, they tend to be really push the envelope on that. So I think you'll see product-wise and strategy and design, those kind of things, be more like that. But obviously, the foundation needs to be really solid, and that's what we're focusing on also.
It kind of sounds like the Kia Hyundai relationship almost, doesn't it? I mean, where you guys are, and because their products, the new there's a new electric, I don't know what's it called, a Kona or something, a Hyundai, which I think is exquisitely beautiful design. So which you never would have thought. I live in an area where there's, although I don't have money, I live around a lot of people who do, and 10 years ago, no one here would have owned a Hyundai or a Kia. Now my neighbor across the street does. So it's amazing how quickly those biases go away.
Yeah, and I mean, what
but you got to make good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Yeah. And the thing that attracted me to CFMOTO originally was the fact that they were taking seriously. Like I said, I have a design background, so when I came in and they embraced that right away, they worked with world-class designers already. On the four-wheel side, we were able to bring in some of the top designers in the industry. And you don't attract talent like that if you don't have the culture and the support from the top to want to be leaders in those areas.
I am a huge road racing fan, and so when I turn on MotoGP, and this is kind of where the CFMOTO thing hit me. So the marketing works, but you are involved in the Moto3 and Moto2 World Championships. Now, just to clarify, because it's kind of confusing, in the Moto3 you're actually using a KTM, which there's a connection there. And then Moto2 is a spec class, so it's a Cadillac chassis with a Triumph triple engine. But still, you're running those teams, and you're underwriting those teams, obviously. So, and then I've heard that there's a major. Now, you guys, I don't know, you're probably not as nerdy about this stuff as I am, but in 2027 there's new MotoGP rules, and there have been talk of CFMOTO making a MotoGP bike and going racing, which is a Herculean, insane thing to say because of the cubic amount of dollars involved to do it. But you guys are swinging for the fences, right?
I think he's got the insider information right now.
I think I do.
So yeah, I guess you could kind of, none of that stuff's confirmed or anything like that. But obviously,
we're friends. Nobody's watching this.
Yeah. Once you get into, if you're okay, we understand that there's a big undertaking with sponsoring Moto3, Moto2, just MotoGP in general. Obviously, that's a lot. So with new product that we have coming out and some things down the road, none of that would surprise me. Obviously, MotoGP is a whole different ball game than the other ones are. But you can just kind of tell there's writing on the wall that okay, these guys are trying to break into this super sport category.
Now, Chris, you were in your due diligence before this interview. You spent some time in the advrider.com forum. So, what were the crazy people saying? Tell us.
There wasn't a lot of crazy. It's just a lot of I have to figure out okay, who's in what part of the world. Okay, he's from over here, he's from Europe, he's from Australia, things like that. So not a lot of crazy. It's just more ADV centric is kind of what I was kind of going through, especially as a guy that's I'm not a huge ADV rider. So, but I think I kept getting the question, at least from the U.S. people. What's the price? Is this confirmed? When is it going to be in the U.S.? What's going to happen, dealer wise and things like that. So it is MSRP is $64.99 USD. The bikes will start to land in dealers at the end of August. Not all dealers, obviously, we got to ship them out. So we will have a dealer meeting in August, at the end of August. So hopefully some of them will start to trickle into dealers. I did see a lot of people that said they had deposits. Supply will be pretty thin until the end of the year, and then we'll kind of into 25 kind of make some more changes as far as production and things like that go. So lots of questions about that. So you're hearing it from me right now. So but I know some guys are putting deposits down, so that's good news to hear. I'm glad that there's there's 70 pages worth of comments. Makes me very, very happy. I'm glad that there's, there's very little, I'm not buying it because it's Chinese type thing. It's a very positive conversation. So I went an hour into the rabbit hole yesterday on there. So it's very interesting to see how much traction that bike has got in a very short amount of time. So it makes us happy that we're on the right path, we hope.
And are you able to fulfill when a dealer orders a bike from you? Are you able to get the bikes to them quickly? Have there been issues with the supply chain stuff, or are there full complement of your range in most dealerships?
There's always complications, issues in supply chain and logistics. So for me to say that we've been 100%, I would just be lying. We do pretty well on motorcycles, but it's always a challenge. Motorcycles, you kind of, with the seasonality in the U.S. market and things like that, you have to be very careful on when you have inventory. So moving forward, we do have supply coming. In my dream world, sales world, everything would land all on the same day and I could ship it out the next day, but that's not how it works. But for the fall and the timeline, we're close to hitting our timeline, at least for the rest of the year, especially with IBEX 450.
Nice.
Now, that I do caveat that, if every dealer might not get how many they ordered, at least in the short term. Long term, yes. Short term, no.
Do you know of any, because in where I live, you guys are in with a longstanding Yamaha dealership. Is there any kickback from the Japanese? Do you know, or other brands when CFMOTO comes in? Can you give me some dirt on any of the insider information?
I think right now when when a dealer signs up for CFMOTO, it's a lot more focused on four wheel. So our competitors on four wheel are probably a couple different other names. So there's definitely I would say some pushback there. We haven't, made
Another Minnesota company, perhaps? Not naming names.
Who will remain unnamed. But yeah, the dealership, we've grown a lot since COVID started, just tremendously because of supply and things like that. So our dealer network has changed a lot over the last 3 to 4 years. So I think we're probably doing a little bit more aggravating now than we were 3 or 4 years ago as far as other OEMs go. But it's a small business, it's a small industry. We know everybody, so we're all trying to get a piece of the pie.
And the one thing I'll say from the product end, it's been kind of fun because on the four wheel side, we've seen CFMOTO get established, and initially we had to tell the story. Who's CFMOTO? You had to get the name out there. You had sales, support, marketing, and all that to kind of start building the brand and the name. now there's a lot of people that come in asking for CFMOTO. You know, we've got established in the 4-wheel area. 2-wheel, we're still doing that. What we've seen is some of the, you know, even with some of the early product that we've had here, what we've been able to hit as far as the performance and the features and the styling and just the general appeal, you know, it's of interest to competitors. You know, definitely. We find that when we go to shows, and you know, it's fun to be able to go in and talk with other OEMs, and they understand that we're early, we're building, but we're even at this point we're making a little bit of an impact.
So in other words, they're aggravated that you're selling for 20% less than they are.
Well, we get a lot of compliments too from other OEMs. They come over and tell us what a good job we're doing. So yeah, we're I don't want to say.
Chris, I'm just saying, if they've got their hands around your neck, that's not a compliment. Just to clarify.
To me, it's a compliment. So I don't.
Maybe it is a compliment.
Yeah. So no, it just means that, you know what, we're making some good decisions. You know what I mean? We're doing the right thing right now.
Well, prices, I mean, price with motorcycles is a huge issue right now, you know, especially in, you know, there's a lot of people, younger people are involved in the gig economy, and, you know, and money is tight. And the F900 GS BMW that I just rode in Nevada that I mentioned, I mean, the as equipped price was over 18,000 with the options that they fitted to the bikes. So, things are, and that's a mid-size ADV bike. I mean, a very good one with a great brand and backup and so on and all that. But still, I mean, the difference between, you know, 11 grand your bike and, you know, 18 is pretty substantial. I mean, I presume money comes up in focus groups.
Yeah, that's well, you know, we spend a lot of time at dealer. We have a demo truck, and so we're doing a ton of demos on motorcycles right now. And people come up and they're still kind of like, "How much is that?" Like, and they're trying to wrap their head around it a little bit, and then that kind of like raises like, "Okay, now tell me some more about it." So, and we're getting a lot of second bike buyers. It's weird how many Harley people are buying our bikes, how many Ducati people are buying our bikes, BMW, because they want a second bike or something like that. So price has become a huge issue. And we were just doing research with dealers, and we talk to China all the time. We're trying to make them understand insurance, like what insurance costs are in the US and how much they've risen. And if you do certain things with certain motorcycles, how that's going to take buyers out of the market, especially younger people. So don't do this, change it this. We got to make sure that we keep people's insurance rates down, let alone the fact that we're trying to give them a value proposition with the unit itself. We're trying to not, you know, bury them on insurance as well.
In closing, a word from our sponsor. eBay Motors is here for the ride. With some elbow grease, fresh installs, and a whole lot of love, you transformed 100,000 miles and a body full of rust into a drive that's all your own. Brake kits, LED headlights, whatever you need, eBay Motors has it. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions naturally apply. Thank you for listening to The Lowdown Show.